Wouldn't it be wonderful if we could look into somebody's face and really know who they are at a deep level? Perhaps we might be able to instantly see their gifts, their talents. Perhaps we could see whether they'd make an ideal business partner, whether they'd make an ideal relationship partner. Now, what if I told you there is a method which is 90% accurate to measure, to evaluate the pattern recognition, the face recognition possibilities. You can learn in a very short time how to read somebody's face, and this could make a massive difference in your life in so many areas. Later in the program, we'll be welcoming back Tony Pantalleresco for the second time. He's going to inform us on a lot of very key things. I'm hoping to ask him particularly on what is the best method to flush out, clean, rejuvenate one's liver and gallbladder, and also the best remedy for the thyroid. But for now, I'd like to welcome Naomi Tickle, who is the author of this book, What Makes People Tick and Why, and puts on courses worldwide to teach face pattern recognition. So welcome, Naomi.
Well, thank you very much, Clive. It's great to be here.
Well, thank you so much. And I'm hoping in the course of this evening that you can run through some of the easier and more obvious facial recognition patterns that we can all use and perhaps start using right away. Tell us a little bit about the system and how incredibly scientifically reliable it turns out to be.
Well, this was actually started by a judge in Los Angeles back in the 1930s. And whilst he was in court, he was intrigued by the whole relationship between facial structure and personality, and would constantly see these patterns whilst in court, to the point where he decided to drop his work and then researched it together with a team of men and came up with the system we use today. And they did the initial research on just over 10,000 people. And this applies across all cultures. So no matter where we are in the world, if you see somebody with a certain shape, eye, forehead, width of face, the eyelids, it's going to mean exactly the same. So after their research, they then were invited by the Freshman Air Force to see if by using this system, they could determine who would stay the course. And they actually got 97% accuracy. And they even indicated the type of aircraft they would fly. Now, this was about a couple of years ago. This was validated by a man I happened to meet, and he was unaware I knew of this story. And he shared with me that his father had been a part of that study. And then they've done studies in San Quentin prison, not for crime, because there's no trait that indicates crime. They just started to see how this would help the prison guards and the warden work with the inmates. And the feedback from the psychologist and the warden, they said what was uncovered within a period of about a couple of hours, they said would have taken months, years, maybe never to have found out. In that, their personality traits and their strengths and challenges. So a lot of these traits can be seen at the time of birth, such as writing, detailed, precision, music, historian, the designer, someone who's good at organizing, someone who's more analytical or wants the bottom line. And then by the time the child has passed puberty, all these traits are fully formed. So I think of the face as like the GPS of our inner blueprint. It's a reference point. It's a map. that it gives us a starting point as to where we can take our journey in our life. What are our innate strengths and challenges? And I have to say, Clive, that when I first came across this, so I'm originally from the south of England, I thought, oh, this sounds so Californian. No, I'm not going to fall for this one. It sounded like one of these touchy-feely things to do. But I went down and had an assessment. And for the first time, I felt validated. So it's all based on the structure of the face. Nothing to do with expression or dimples or freckles or whatever it might be. It's all to do with the structure of the face. And when I had my chart done, I thought, you know, there must be a lot of students out there who leave school, haven't got a clue what to do, they've got a degree in hand, and they're still lost. And I remember going through that same experience, and it took me many years later to come across this. And yet, as a child, I'd always been intrigued by this whole concept, and would share with my parents, well, why are they different from here? Oh, it's because of this and this. And they would say to me, don't be silly, don't stare at people. So, but I was intrigued, so it was not surprising that many years later, here it was again, coming into my life, and it's been an amazing journey.
Well, that's fantastic. I mean, so if I get this right, so that when the baby's born, they're going to say, well, good news, it's a girl and it's a musician.
That's right. Or I saw this little baby, it was about 5 months old, and I noticed they had these little lines that are etched in just here. They're not age lines, you see them at day of birth, and it's to do with writing. And I thought I have to share with her mother that her daughter would be a writer later on, and so I did. I told her what I did and explained it. And she said, oh, well, I write for the newspaper. So, you know, there was what the child had inherited from the parents. Now, when the face is very asymmetrical, that will indicate that the parents of that child were very different from each other. And so when there's a lot of differences, say about 15 or more differences from left to right side of the face, this will indicate people who have mood swings. And they're often called bipolar or ADD or something like that. But it's the push and pull of the traits. And when I explain to people what's going on, they say, oh, I feel so normal. Now I understand myself. And I remember I was in the parking garage and I saw this young man, and I thought he was helping people out with their tickets. And I thought, the talent in his face, I had to reach out to him. And so I said to him, are you going to college? And no, he said. I said, what are your plans? He said, well, I'm a high school dropout. Who's going to want me? So I shared with him what I do. And I said to him, you know, you might want to get into film editing. And with that, he reached out, to about 17, 18 years of age. He reached out, catches hold of my hands, and says, you have just turned my life around. He said, that has been an area I've been interested in, but I didn't think I was good enough. So it gives you such an immediate insight to people and who they are. So instead of us reacting the way people are, we come from understanding. And then after I did my initial studies, I studied this in the early 1990s, and then I took a couple of years out and researched this just to test it out and get the feedback from the clients I met with. And I went to several of the expos in England as well as in the United States, you know, working with people. And I started to see the patterns and the confirmation that, yes, this does work. And it's, as I say, it's helping people all over the world. People who are lost in a career and say, what should I be doing next? Or couples who are struggling to find a partner, or the struggles within the relationship. Businesses who are looking to create a better team or to work together more effectively. It's just helping so many people, and it's making a difference.
And on a sort of a less important note, but one that struck me, was that I heard you speaking about the idea that casting directors should know this, because it completely explained to me, well, that's why so many people look completely out of character, because they are. And if only they knew what you can teach them, films would be so much better.
Oh, absolutely. The part comes alive. I remember watching somebody play, I think it was Richard Nixon or somebody. It just didn't work. It just simply didn't work. And other times I see people miscast it. I think, no, I think they do a pretty good job in England, I have to say. We're still very much a follower of the English films. We enjoy them, and I think do a much better at character casting. But even then, there's still some errors that are made.
Yes. And I was interested to hear you say how much more accurate it is than intuition. I'd love to think that our intuition was more accurate, but perhaps the intuition can be trained once you... I imagine the intuition perhaps trains the subconscious, so without even looking you begin to get a sense of who's who, or do you still find that the science, you have to do the science, or is your intuition improving as a result?
I don't think it's intuition. I think it's pattern recognition. We meet thousands of people over our time. And I think our brain sees the patterns there. You know, sometimes we meet people and say, oh, I think you'd be good at this. Don't know why, but I've got a feeling. I've got intuition. This is what you'd be good at. Or something seems familiar about that face. What is it? And I think the brain is connecting the patterns that we see. In fact, you know, when you see a room full of people in the same activity, for example, tennis. A lot of your tennis players, your professional tennis players, will have close-set eyes, focused on the ball. And people who play golf as well, typically close-set eyes. Or if you take another sport like volleyball or gymnastics, a lot of the women have close-set eyes, focused on the ball. Whereas the wider set-eyed person is much more the bigger picture. Or if you went into a room of accountants, you'd find a lot of people with closer eyes. Or when I gave a lecture to a workshop at the orthodontist conference, I had 200 beady eyes looking at me, which says, oh, they're in the right profession, good with detail. And so we see those patterns after a while. So I think what we believe is intuition, I see it as pattern recognition. And I like the science of this because it doesn't matter where you are. If you see somebody who has, say, as we were talking about, the close-set eyes, we actually measure it. We measure the width of the eye itself, and then we measure the space between the eyes. And we look to see, is the eye larger than the space between, and therefore they are less tolerant people, and they're very good with detail. They get sometimes worried. They worry about things till it's bigger than life sometimes. Whereas the wide-set-eyed people are much more laid back. Oh, it's going to be fine. What are we worrying about? Just relax, get over it. And they're the multitaskers. Oh, I can do this and this and this. And they get a bit scattered sometimes. Whereas the closer-eyed person, very good with details, as I mentioned, but sometimes when things aren't working or someone's said something to hurt their feelings, they can worry about situations till it's bigger than life itself. Remember a woman who sent me a photograph from England, and she hadn't driven her car in a long time. She was so fearful of driving. And her eyes couldn't have been closer. And so I did her profile, and I explained to her that everybody with this trait experiences that level of anxiety. So I suggested to her that she might want to, next time she's going to drive the car, find a book on tape and then play it in the car as she drives. Her first trip, she drove from London to Wales and has not stopped driving. So I went to the why. I explained to her about the trait and told her, made a suggestion as to what she could do. And it works. It's the same. So I was on the TV program in England, and this woman had sleep anxiety. And there were several of us on the show talking about that, and I'm giving her some suggestions what to do. And afterwards, we stepped outside, and I talked with her and did a little bit of coaching. And she just flung her arms around me and said, oh, you've made a difference. She said, this has really helped me to understand why I do this. As simple as that. So all it takes is a glance at the face, and you pretty much know about people.
Well, it's so important because I see so many people who are lost in life. They've got no clue what they want to do. And I see everybody has got a great gift, one way or another. I think everybody's here for a reason to do something interesting and good. Let's say you were to teach this at schools. At what age are children really receptive to it? I imagine from quite young.
Oh, yes. I mean, the younger, actually, the more receptive they are. I remember this, actually, it was a story that I was in England, and this lady brought me, or this mother brought me her 9-year-old daughter, who is blind. And she was going to a special school, I believe in Wales, driving from London to Wales a couple of times a week, because the school authorities didn't think she was too bright and that she had some learning disabilities. And anyway, her mother brought her in to see me whilst I was in London, and I did her assessment. And it was a very moving experience. And she actually even went up, this little girl went up and turned on my computer. Now, she's blind. And I was blown away by that. And her mother said to me, "You were surprised?" She said, "I was really surprised." Anyway, what came up for her was electrical engineering. And I thought, oh, this is strange. And this is not something I would suggest. So I shared this with her mother. And she said, "Oh, I'm not at all surprised." She said, when the man came to fix the washing machine, she goes up to him and said, "It's missing on the first cycle. Will you show me how to fix it?"
Oh, fantastic. And
her mother took her out of the mainstream school, because I said to her mother, she is very bright, your daughter. She took her out of the mainstream school. She went back into the regular school and just soared. She said the level of confidence changed her daughter completely. And it was a very moving experience because she came up and snuggled next to me. And I felt there was some connection there. She was really sensing it. Here's somebody who doesn't know her, was validating who she was. And that's simply all I do.
And are there any schools who are giving career guidance as a normal standard thing to all their students using your methods?
No, they are very reluctant to accept this concept. And it's, I don't understand, because it's right there, and I think they get a sense of it. And perhaps the teachers are so overloaded anyway. But there's so many kids who've left school. I've worked with Stanford University students who are in the master's degree program, and every one of them changed their master's or their studies based on what came up for them, because it felt good. It felt right for them. And I see there's about, 67% of the students leaving school today, they're lost. They don't know what to do.
You don't think it's 95%?
Is it?
Well, I mean, the most of the kids I know, they don't really want to go to university entirely, but they're doing it often because they don't know what else to do, and it's better than stacking shelves. I think there's a huge proportion of people who are lost.
It is, and another trait we talk about is the outer corner of the eyes. When the outer corner of the eyes are lower than the inner corner, these people see mistakes that other people miss, and they wonder why you miss them. They're the perfectionists. They're the critics. Now, the gift is they're very good at anything that involves precision, which could be engineering, it could be editing, film and text. It could be anything that would benefit from this activity. And for example, we had our back deck rebuilt, but before we hired anybody, believe you me, I looked at all the contractors' faces thoroughly, and I selected the one who had the traits I was looking for, the perfectionist and fairly detailed. And so when I awarded him the contract, I gave him my book. And he said to me, "You hired me based on my face?" And I said, "Yes, I did." And all of his co-workers, all of his fellow workers, they all had that trait. And the precision in which they built that whole deck, it was amazing to watch. It was far more than I could do anyway. But it's just matching people up with activities they enjoy. Whereas when people's eyes go up like that, and incidentally, you see the critical trait in all cultures. We often think that the Asian culture looks very different from other people. Well, it does in the skin tone and the shape of the face, but they still have exactly the same traits. You will see the critical trait in the Asian people as well. And so that's the gift. Now, the challenge is that if parents have this trait, they can be constantly criticizing their child. Nothing's ever good enough. They come running home from school and show the parents what they have done. The parent sees what they haven't done. And all they hear is the criticism. And I remember working from somebody in the north of England, and she said her father criticized her so much that he put her, well, she allowed, I guess, to put her life on hold until she was in her early 70s. Because all she did was to run the criticism over and over and over in her head, and found it very hard to let go. And with a couple of sessions with her, everything was fine, and she decided to do what she always wanted to do. Well, part of what she wanted to do was actually psychology, but she got into coaching and thoroughly enjoying herself. So my youngest client has been 3 years of age, and my oldest one is about 92. And it just helps people to understand. But going back to that critical trait, this is one of the major traits that can have issues in relationships. Because the husband or wife or partners come home and they point out what their partner didn't do. Until it can wear down that relationship. What they're really thinking, they're helping people by they don't hear the criticism in their voice. They think they're helping people, pointing out what they do. So those of you who are watching this, if you can relate to having this trait, praise someone first for what they do. Then point out, well, there's a couple of things you might want to fix, but keep up the work, good work. Otherwise, that person they're interacting with could carry that criticism in their head for hours, days, months. And they hear that never good enough. The same happened when a man sent me a photograph from New York. He was a taxi cab driver. I immediately saw the outer corners of his eyes were lower than the inner corners. And I said to him, what was it like growing up with your parents? He said, I don't want to go there. It was so painful. He said, I'm seeing a psychologist to get me through the pain. And I noticed he had the musical trait, which is the outer corner of the ear is completely rounded. So next time you look at a group of musicians, look to see the C-shaped ear. And I emailed back and I said, you should take up music and play a musical instrument. His response was, oh, well, I was at the Los Angeles School of Music, and I got so criticized that I dropped out. And I said to him, you have a gift. Go and pick up your music again and join a musical group. And he did just that. And so, again, it's helping people to understand the trait. So if somebody criticizes you at work, flash to the why. It gives you clues, and then you'll understand that better. But if you're hiring somebody in, it's not the only trait you would look for, but that particular position in the company, or the job that you're doing, if precision is a benefit to this job, then I would certainly look for the abilities that we see in the face. We don't necessarily have to hire somebody based on their face shape, but it gives you another piece of information or another piece of the puzzle, so that when you're hiring someone or whether you're communicating with people, it immediately gives you a sense of who that person is and how to better work with them.
So are there a lot of companies who are now employing this as a regular thing?
A few small companies are. I've worked with a few startup companies. In fact, I worked with one in England. It was a new startup company. They were manufacturing vodka or something like that. And the CEO of the company sent me all their top directors in to see me. And it was interesting. And so the next week he calls me and said, what you uncovered with the short time you were with my men, he said, it'll take my son who does psychometric testing with all the top corporations. He said, months, maybe never to have found out.
So there should be recruitment companies around the world offering this as,
Absolutely.
It seems incredible that it's not happening.
Well, people don't want to believe, Clive, that we look at the face and that tells us about a person. They think we're judging, we're discriminating, or some people say, well, isn't this racist or ethnicity? It goes across all cultures. We don't do a different assessment for a different culture. We come from one source, and we all have these traits. Yes, you will see certain patterns in some countries, like even in England. I noticed that the features in the north were different from the south. And it was just interesting to see the patterns. It was a certain shape of the chin up in Yorkshire, and it was more dominant up there than in the south of England. But but going back to some other traits that we look at the eyelids, and if the eyelids are completely exposed, so when you're looking at someone, you can see their eyelid. Those people want you to get to the bottom line. Never mind all the questions, just tell me. And they tend to interrupt you, finish off their sentence for you, or just stop listening. They just want the bottom line. I know what you're saying, just tell me. And they're very action-driven. And if they're competitive too, then they're even more action-driven. It's, come on, let's go, don't waste my time, we're ready to go. Never mind the details, we'll work it out as we go. Whereas when the eyelid is more covered, these people will ask you question after question after question, and just when you think you've answered all their questions, they've got 1,000 more. And in the meantime, the person with the exposed eyelids, their eyes are rolling, think, oh my gosh, I'm out of here. And so what you say to that person, say, look, I have a lot of questions. It's important we go over this. Bear with me. Or vice versa. I know you have a lot of questions, but we've only got so much time. And that way, you're communicating what your needs are.
So you mentioned that measurements were needed in some cases. How often can you just judge it by eye? And how often maybe you've got to have a photograph and get the ruler out?
Well, there's special tools that were developed to measure the face. Now, with the experience that I have, I can recognize most of the traits. There's one trait, a couple of traits that are not as easy. One is to tell if the person has a square forehead in here. If they have a square forehead, it's a certain way we measure that to determine if it's square or oval. If they have a square head, these people are bored by repetition. They're the seed planters. They're the planters of the idea. In fact, when I was talking to IBM Marketing Division in England, in London, after the workshop, I did some assessments for each of the people who were attending, and most of them had square heads. And they're the marketing people. They like to plant the seed, plant the ideas, and then get somebody else to take it through, like the salespeople. They don't want to continue following it through. Whereas somebody who has more oval forehead will stay through to the end. Another trait that is difficult to determine from the photographs, and I ask people if they're competitive or they procrastinate a lot, and it's the shape of the head, and we do it back in here. And if people have a very narrow head at the back, these are your procrastinators. I'm going to do it one day. Yes, I am. Yes, one day I'm going to do it. And they have this dream, and they never get around to doing it. And it can be so frustrating for people who work with them. But again, once you know the why, you can start to work with it. So the competitive procrastination and the shape of the forehead is difficult to determine from photographs, and also the asymmetry. We can't always see all of the asymmetry in the face. But I've worked with thousands of people over time. And in fact, what I do now when I do people's assessments from photographs, I include a Skype call. And so it makes it more personal, and that I can see their face a little more clearly.
And your consultations are very reasonable, considering the life-changing results that people can get.
Well, I have this ski jump nose, Clive.
Yes, tell us about the ski jump nose.
Charging for their services. I want to share it with more people. Why limit it to just people who can afford the high prices? It's typically the people who are medium to lower range who are needing help. Yeah. And, my passion is about reaching out and making a difference. And one needs to charge a reasonable fee for this, but it's important to reach more people who need that help. And that's more important to me. And, sometimes I will see people in a store or somewhere at a gathering, and if I see they've got a gift, I will reach out to them.
And so you're teaching courses as well, and that presumably would sound like a very good idea as a way to learn it, and presumably one can do it at distance with a tele sort of course or something.
Yes, I have a correspondence course that I offer, and that lays the foundation for the advanced course. And then I have an advanced hands-on course where what I do with that one, we meet with 2 people a day, 2 models a day, and we learn how to measure the traits. And then I designed a career program based on the Department of Labor guidelines for career assessments, and they describe the qualities needed for each job. And so what we do, you can see those qualities in the face. So what we did is, my husband and I, we designed this computer program. You enter the traits into the computer, and it matches up your traits with careers that need those abilities. I look for a 91% and higher match for that career. And it seems to work. And I did some blind studies with career counselors just to see, comparison studies, see how this compared to Myers-Briggs, DISC, and many of the psychometric tests. And what I found, based on the feedback from the subjects I worked with and the counselors, they said this is a better match.
Brilliant.
So the advanced program includes the career career program as well.
When I was reading your book, it was great because there, some of the examples I really recognised, and one of them was the inquisitive nose, the sort of the large nose, the sort of sniffing out the truth type nose, and I recognised that person right away. There are several that were, I know you.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. And people with narrow faces, really narrow faces, they build their confidence through knowledge. And what happens is, when these people are in new situations, there's a lot of fear inside, anxiety. And if they have closer eyes, that are even more anxious. And they just need to relax. Whereas a wide-faced person, we measure this trait. They fake it till they make it. Oh, I can do that, not a problem. And then you start to see. I remember being in an office at a financial office, getting ready to give a workshop there. And it was a couple of the employees, I guess the manager and 2 other employees there. And he was really, I felt, putting the pressure on this woman. And she had a lot of anxiety. And I could see it. And then because this was new, what he wanted her to do. And after she left, the manager turned around and said to the other employee, he said, I can't stand that woman. She gets so uptight about everything, and she's just so awkward to be with. And so I thought, I have to go up and say something. And I said, this is what I've come here to teach today here, and this is what was going on. And he turned around and looked at me and said, I had no idea. So, as you said, it has many applications, and it's like a reference point, a map. Like if you were to go on a long journey, say a 500-mile journey without a map, or even a 100-mile journey, you can go take this turning, that turning, you get all sorts of advice on the way, and it takes 4 or 5 times as long to get there. Whereas if you have a map, you say, oh, I need to be back here. And this is what the face serves, is a map or a reference point as to who we are and what are our strengths and what are our abilities and our talents. And the more we're connected with that, the more in balance we are with our lives. And understanding other people. And it's a great tool for immediately recognizing how we can work and interact with people and why some people react to certain situations and what we need to do to calm them down. Like when I was on a cruise ship, I've lectured on cruise ships. The man behind me was giving the crew a really hard time. And I turned around and yes, very close at eyes. Couldn't be closer. So I thought, okay, I've got to calm down. So I said, I understand your frustration, but we're all in the same boat. We have to be patient here and just work with it. And after I just chatted for a couple of minutes, he calmed down and never said another word. So instead of attacking him, I came from understanding.
So I can imagine you could take the tension out of some pretty serious situations with those skills as well.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Sort of hostage negotiators need these skills. But I think that the biggest one must be dating or marriage.
It's huge. Yeah, so, today, so many couples break up. It's really sad.
It's almost normal now, isn't it?
it's almost normal. But if people know what they're moving into, or who they're meeting, it gives them a heads up what to expect. There is no good or bad trait. I mean, all traits have their benefits, their pluses, and their more challenging side to it. But it's how we work with them. Like this one man who came to my workshop had the critical trait. And he emailed me the next day and he said, you know, I heard myself criticizing my wife the next day, and he said, I apologized right away. The same for this man who, again, it sent me an email, a photograph from England. He was very, very critical and had a very dry sense of humor, very cutting. And I sent him back results. He was in his 70s, I think about 75. I guess he was curious about what this was about. Anyway, then about 2 months later, he writes back to me. And he said, you know, when I got your audio explaining my traits to me, he said, I heard myself for the first time. He said, prior to receiving that CD, he said, my daughter and I had the huge breakup. He said she wanted to have nothing more to do with me. That was the end of it. He said, when I listened to your CD, he said, I heard myself for the first time. He called his daughter up, apologized right away. He said, we have the best relationship ever. And so it develops an awareness, knowing this about ourselves and about other people, of why we are the way we are. And as I say, there's no bad trait. We have the choice. That choice does supersede structure. I live here just north of San Francisco in a little town called Petaluma, and there's some steps that joins the streets. And I saw these little boys on their skateboards. One was about 8 and the others were about 11. The youngest one crashes down the bottom, and I said to him, let me see your hands. No, he says. I said, let me see your hands. No, he says. And the little boy, his friend said, show the lady your hands. So he puts his hands up like that. And I wanted to see if the ring finger was longer than the index finger. So if I go like that, you can see it makes my ring finger longer. And that indicates risk-taking, which makes sense. And all his friends said, what about me? What about me? And I checked out their hands, and sure enough, all the risk takers. So it can be physical risk as well as financial risk. And it was very amusing because there's this man coming up the steps, and they all ran up to him and said, excuse me, sir, can we see your hands? And he put his hands up like that. And I told him how to do that. And they said to him, you're not a risk taker. And he said, you got that right.
How funny.
Yeah.
While we've just been speaking, they've just turned on the monitor here, and people who are watching this live are asking questions. And it seems that people want to know what you think of David Cameron.
Well, I'd have to have his photograph in front of me, but I don't, unfortunately. He does have a narrow face. He is very competitive, no doubt. He's very much a people person, has the oval forehead. He's not your typical prime minister, the features of a prime minister or a president of a country. If you look back at Winston Churchill, Edward Kennedy, even Tony Blair, most of them had wider faces. And today there seems to be a different type of leadership. A lot of the leaders now have narrower faces. So there's a different leadership style than there used to be. The narrow-faced person has to push a little harder to convince people they know what they're doing. I'm not saying that they don't know what they're doing. It's just that they don't have that same energy that a wide-faced person does. But if anyone's curious, they can always email me and send me David Cameron's photograph, or I can get it off the internet and I'll let you know.
Well, yes, I'm sure people would be very interested. And how about President Obama? What do you see when you look at him?
Well, he has the square head. It looks straight across there. So he's the seed planter. So he'll introduce lots of new concepts and bring new ideas into whilst he is there in the leadership position. He also has cupped out ears. When ears are cupped out, like Vladimir Putin, his ears are very cupped out. This means when they're cupped out, he likes to be in control of situations, in control of projects, programs, people. And when you look at the way Obama's dressed, he's dressed in a very neat, tidy, looks nothing is out of place compared to, say, George Bush Jr. I mean, he's got a very tidy look about him, and he's got fairly wideish set eyes. So the multitasker, and then as we look at him, the left eye, the corner of the left eye is lower than the inner corner, so he does see mistakes that other people miss. And he's very analytical. He wants to know how and why things work. And he's certainly extremely competitive. He has a very wide head at the back. And those people are extremely competitive. And you would find that most people in the corporate world and in the political world are going to be extremely competitive. They wouldn't be around otherwise.
So how long would you say it would take somebody to learn it on a casual basis, that with their friends they'd have a reasonably good grasp of it, and then how long to perhaps become really proficient and even professional at it?
Well, from just reading a book, which discusses the extremes of the traits, people get a sense of it. It doesn't train anybody. It just introduces the concept. It takes a while to learn it just by reading a book, because there's a lot of information in my book. And, it's too much to absorb, and you have to have someone who's trained to really teach people how to recognize it. But you'll be able to you'll be able to recognize some of the basic traits, like the eyes. You'll be more aware of the narrow face, the slope of the forehead, etc. To take the course, the basic course, the correspondence course, to really study it, I would say 3 months to study it, going through the book. And it consists of a set of CDs and some Skype, 6 one-hour Skype calls, so that people can learn, in that way we talk about a new photograph at each session, and they learn how to enter the information onto the chart that we use. And then as far as the advanced course, once they've studied it, I would say within that 6-month period of starting the correspondence course, then with a year, or as soon as they've worked with 50 people, I would say they have enough experience there to be able to start giving workshops and certainly do charts for career assessments and personality charts.
Well, I think it's the job of the future, along with organic gardening, perhaps. I think that's absolutely fabulous. And now, perhaps you could tell our viewers how they should get in touch with you, your website.
Well, they can. Thank you, Clive. They can go to my website, which is www.naomitickle.com. That's NaomiTickle. Or they can email me at Naomi Tickle, without the E on the end of tickle, at AOL.com. And if they would like just a quick mini reading, they just send me one full face photograph with the forehead completely exposed and the ears, and I'll send them back a brief assessment.
Brilliant. Can you briefly, is there anything about me that stands out? Can you see something in my face?
You're in the shadow, so I can't really see you.
I don't know whether I can...
I can see a hazy face.
All right, not to worry. Well, thank you so much, Naomi, and I wish you all the best bringing it to the world.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming on. Thank you.
My pleasure. And, there's my book, What Makes People Tick and Why, and I've just put out a new ebook called Who Am I? Who Are You? Creating Successful Relationships.
Oh, brilliant. Excellent.
So, well, thank you very much, Clive. It's been a pleasure. And if you send me your photograph, I'll give you an assessment.
Oh, that's so kind. Thank you very much. I will, Naomi. All the best.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
So, our next guest, Tony Pantalleresco, is going to come on reasonably shortly. And in the meantime, I can't recommend this book highly enough. I'm going to give it to all my children because I think it's just such a valuable skill. And now we have about 5 minutes to fill in while they're getting Tony on the line. And I wanted to just briefly mention 1 or 2 signs of deficiencies of vitamins and minerals, because most people actually have got things going on, but they don't know the cause or the cure. So I'd like to run through a few of them. Some people have got ridges on their nails, which is a shortage of zinc. At this point, I'm just going to look at my notes so I get all this absolutely right. The eyes, bags, dark circles under the eyes. Bags often tend to be allergies or more likely food intolerances. Dark circles can quite often be a sign of kidney stress, needing to drink more water. The next one on the list here are bleeding gums, which a lot of people suffer from. Vitamin C deficiency can often be the cause of that, and gum disease in general. Gum problems can also be insufficient CoQ10 and the B vitamins. And I personally, tooth and gum wise, recommend colloidal silver, so that you can just have a little bit of colloidal silver, tastes just like water, sip a little bit, hold it in the mouth and flush it around the teeth and the gums and then swallow it. And I'm just told that we've actually got Tony ready on the line to speak with us. Welcome, Tony. How are you?
Hey, pretty good.
Excellent. Oh, good.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I saw a brief glimpse of you there. So thank you so much for joining us. I'm hoping that, a couple of questions I'd particularly like to ask you, because people keep asking me about liver and gallbladder cleansing,
okay.
Cleaning the liver. And, many people I know think that doing the classic gallbladder flush with Epsom salts and lemon and oil is a good idea, but the person who wrote the book died, and I always worry when health experts die, they're just not meant to do that. So, can we start?
We all die. Eh? It depends what kills us.
Yes.
That's a hoot.
So, what do you recommend? I mean, the Chinese always say that health starts in the liver, and I think you probably think so too, perhaps.
The best thing I've ever seen that touches everything at one time is the sodium thiosulfate. I'm so sold on that, it's not even funny. I've never seen anything in any, like I say, in any efficacy that works like this. It will go into the liver, the gallbladder, it even goes right into the pancreas. I mean, majority of these cleanse kits that are on the market today don't do anything really for you. What a lot of them will do is they will get in and they will actually push out what's there, but then they leave their own mix of whatever. And majority of the people we're dealing with today, I was doing another show on another network, and we got to start thinking in terms of molecular and genetic violations, because that's what we're dealing with, today. And when you're talking cleanses and when you're talking purging, when you're talking whatever you're talking in regard to cleaning the body, we're not in that same paradigm we were 30 years ago or 40 years ago. So we're dealing with a whole different level of toxification. Chemtrail fallout, genetically engineered foods, vaccines, fluoridated water. I mean, the list goes on. And all these things are by design to attack the digestive system and the endocrine system. So when we're looking at these things, we have to look at how are they breaking us down, and what do we really need to remove the fluoride out, or to remove the mercury out, or to remove the genetically engineered material out of the body. We're dealing with genetics and molecular nanoparticulate biofilm that is nothing we've ever seen before. So when we're talking cleanses today, it's all going to be pertinent and relevant to what you're cleaning out. It's a parasite, and again, if the parasite hasn't been genetically altered by the food you're eating, by the bacteria in the soil that has maybe altered these biofilms or these parasites or these microbes. I mean, you got to remember, when you plant a GMO crop in the ground, you're not only just changing the plant, you're changing the whole ecosystem in the ground. You're changing the plant life, you're changing the bug life, you're changing the bacteria, you're changing everything. So we are not necessarily dealing with what we had years ago. Now, the gallbladder flush that this guy proposed is not a bad idea either. Can't get hold of the SESs can help as well. But to be honest with you, with the polymers, the nanoparticles, the biofilm, the Morgellons issues that are occurring, again, you're going to need something that's going to go in there and hit this really in a way that you're not used to. I mean, you got to go right into the cellular level. I mean, I'm looking at something now to fortify the myelin sheet and the ATP levels of the body, because this is how a lot of us are falling apart. When the ATP levels go down, your cells die. And if you can't keep the cellular activity going, then you got a pilgrim, you got a problem. And if you're being attacked on a cellular level, which is what these things are doing, then you're going to need to boost your ATP levels to maintain high cellular energy, high cellular mobility, and immunity. And if that's not there, everything else is really nothing. Because ATP regulates a lot of the energy elements. You hear it yourself. I'm tired all the time. I'm low in energy. I feel so exhausted. Okay, and so you give them different things like B5 and rhodiola, or maybe FOT or ginseng, or some other adaptogenic herb, or B1 even. And again, it works for a period of time. But then again, what happens is we have another problem going on. You know, they're again being exposed to different things. You know, sometimes it's self-destructive because they're eating junk. But sometimes it has, you know, they're eating the what I call the orgasmically organic, because a lot of that doesn't really pertain anymore today. A lot of them have already been cross-contaminated with genetics. I sent you an article about the Codex Alimentarius and what they're doing to the food supply. So this is breaking people down again on a molecular and genetic level. The targeted areas of the body where most people are going to suffer is going to be in the digestive system as well as the endocrine system. And that's where you wipe out or you accelerate the aging process of people, where they break down exponentially. So again, it all depends what again, it gets back to what we're trying to clean out.
Well, everybody has got this basic level of toxicity that we all need to deal with. I mean, clearly, if we're fish eaters, we're probably getting more mercury and heavy metals than we want. And sodium thiosulfate seems to be the answer. If one was just looking for one simple, incredibly inexpensive answer, it seems like sodium thiosulfate is one of the big ones, would you say?
Unequivocally, you know, I mean, I looked at the research on this. A Russian friend of mine sent me, because they were using this kind of thing. They were using something else too for the miners, because they're so inundated with the pollutants in wherever they were working, the environmental pollutants, and this pulled a lot of it out. So I mean, this stuff will even pull iodine out of your body. So I mean, this is why you don't take iodine with it. Yeah, I mean, again, the toxins again today. I mean, I tell people don't eat grains. Don't eat any grains. They're all mycotoxic. I've got a reference point on my December 12th script where you can look at it from people who are working in a genetically engineered field, and they're telling you what I've been saying for 10 years, leave the grains alone, all of them. There is no such thing as an organically safe grain to consume. Now, maybe in Europe they have a little different standards over there, because you guys do have the option of labeling your GMOs. What they're figuring on is going to happen here in North America is they're going to eventually label them, which I see that coming. But what's going to happen is, because everything's going to be so inundated with GMOs, it's going to be like tobacco. Oh, yeah, you can buy your cigarette, and here's your warning label. The Surgeon General, blah, 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 says if you're smoking cigarettes can cause this and that or whatnot. So people will not have a choice. The options that we have available to us today is to either grow it yourself, because according to that Codex Alimentarius guideline, if you grow it yourself or from an organic, or not, I should say, or a farmer, where you're getting it straight out from the farm, where it doesn't go through the processing of irradiation and breaking down the nutrients. Again, this is where a lot of this accumulation is going on too, because your food doesn't have the nutritional value because of the irradiation process going on. So you're collecting clutter, radioactive material in your colon. So again, you know, we're looking at sulfur to pull the radiation out. We're looking at iodine to pull the radiation out. We're looking at baking soda to pull the radiation out, borax to pull the radiation out. So we have options here, and effective options far better than anything I've seen in the health food industry today. I find that the health food industry today has been a corrupted means to further exacerbate or debilitate people in their health. We're seeing a change in the chemical construct of a lot of these vitamins and what they're adding to these vitamins: polymers, aluminum, soy products, vanadium mixtures. They're adding calcium to some of these things, which again will impede the uptake of a lot of the vitamins in the complex. I'm encouraging people to make your own. Go buy it by bulk, put it together, ratio it out. You can do this, and it's doable. Unless you're getting something from a credible manufacturer, which is going to be very difficult to find because the GMP and the regulatory bodies don't want clean vitamins anymore here. They want them to be contaminated, because when I contaminate the vitamin, I can actually block the effect of the vitamins. So you're not getting what you think. You're getting a placebo effect. I mean, when I see companies that are coming out with what they call a whole food vitamin, and I look at the ingredients and look at the ratios, I'm thinking, this is garbage. This is pure garbage. They're selling it on a concept or an entitlement on the vitamin itself. So you think you're buying something, ooh, super, and it's nothing super about it at all. I'm trying, like I said, to present this in a way where, okay, it's not just doom and gloom. There are options. We do have options, and we have to start taking the initiative on these options. And like I said, if you allow me, I'll send you some information on ATP. One of the things that I think everybody needs to look at and investigate is something called adenine, adenine. And when you look at adenine, it's part of the ATP production. It is one of the things, it's not a cheap supplement by no stretch of the imagination, or cheap material. But by combining this with TSP, guess what? You make ATP. And, there are herbal and plant material that you can also use to make ATP. And some of the cheapest material, ginger, hawthornberry, nettle, very high in production of ATP for our bodies, especially for the male libido and the male endocrine system. Nettle, ginger, and hawthornberry will balance out testosterone. It can actually increase testosterone levels naturally. So these are some of the things that we as men want to consume, because we need to sustain our testosterone levels. We need to maintain that so that our immune system stays functional, our brain stays functional, and that our strength doesn't diminish as a result of the onslaught of chemtrails and genetics and other things that are going on. So this is, again, a simple little thing there. Let me read here some things for you as well. There is a formulation out there where they combined 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 herbs: thyme, rosemary, turmeric, fennel, grapeseed, and dandelion, by 10 and 15% by weight volume, and then they added the ginseng to it. And what it did is it activated the ATP levels exponentially, got it right going, got it right up. So that's one of the things that is out there that you can do. There's another thing here. I wanted to point this out for you to help you out. Rhodiola is a herb that, again, will increase ATP production. Vitamin B3, vitamin B2, and vitamin B5 are critical for ATP production on all levels. Okay. Creatine will also increase ATP. It's another formula. And all you need is the monohydrate. You don't need all these high-end, high-tech, whatever. Now, again, if you want to increase the ATP production with that, combine that with TSP. Again, you're going to increase that exponentially. And again, you're going to increase the strength levels on it. Piracetam or piracetam, it's another nootropic that increases ATP production in the brain. So does vinpocetine, so does hydrogene, so does xanthanol nicotinate. These are things that can, again, be facilitated and used. Ginger is another one for the heart, so is the hawthorn. I'll give you some herbs that can help you, which the common person can have. Blessed thistle, blue cohosh, burdock, cayenne, caraway, catnip, cloves, couchgrass, ginger again, golden seal, hawthorn, hops, kelp, jojoba, mullein, rose hips, sage, sarsaparilla, spearmint, strawberry, thyme, and yucca. So basically, I'm trying to tell you to get going, become the alchemist, put some of this together, make teas with it, make extracts, and combine it. Because we're going to need this kind of technique to maintain the ATP so that the immune system can fight off some of these toxic overloads that you're talking about.
Yes, indeed. One of the other things that raises ATP fantastically is magnesium chloride on the skin.
Yep, exactly. That any magnesium product, yeah, the chloride would be good because it goes right in and bang, and you're going to get it, and it's going to go into the heart, it's going to go into the brain. The ATP is so critical on almost every organ and tissue in our body. Without the cells sustaining that energy and that use of that energy to regulate everything, including the immune system to fight off the overloading of these metals from the sky, from the nanoparticles they're spraying in the plants, and other metals you're getting exposed to in the food supply, whether it's in a box, bag, or can. We're constantly being overloaded now, and it's not just metal. We're talking polymers now. We're talking biofilm, and a combination or cohesion of these things that are in our system that are again causing us to break down and to rapidly, exponentially age very quickly. Okay, I had a 26-year-old woman, young woman, come see me the other day. She had diabetes. 26 years old. This is an accelerated aging process she's dealing with. Okay, and a lot of it has to do with the dietary input of what she's taking and what she thinks she's taking. Okay, and what she thinks is safe. So we had to go through that whole dynamic there about how eliminating the grains, the soy, and all these other things to, again, so that the pancreas can start healing so she can start reversing that process. Excuse me. But this is what's going on with a lot of young people today. And I'm sure you're seeing that in your country, too.
Well, they're all addicted to grains. It's just like a heroin addict. They wake up in the morning craving the injection full of cornflakes or... and then they want their next fix... Yeah, but they might have a second fix at breakfast, some toast as well. Then they have another fix of biscuits in mid-morning, and they rush out and have a sandwich at lunch. And I mean, most people have got a real raging addiction for carbs, particularly grains. They spend half their day thinking about it.
Well, that's how they're designed. That's the genetics of this stuff, okay? We ate bread, okay? Our generation ate bread 50, 60 years ago that we could break down, digest, and it held you all day. I mean, I'm Mediterranean. We basically every meal we ever had bread in it, but it didn't cause this overabundance of overgrowth going on. It wasn't because it wasn't genetically designed back then. Now, geez, we hybrided it, then we genetically engineered it. Now we're combining with nanoparticles, and it's just to further complicate the digestive system, and then a lot of these are mycotoxic and estrogenic on top of that, so now we're attacking the endocrine system. So we're going to have a lot, like you say, a lot of young people, they get up there, have their whatever, Kellogg's cornflakes or sugar pops or whatever the heck they're eating, and they're having toast. I'll tell you a true story. 3 years ago, I went to a hospital because I had food poisoning. I ate something, and it was whatever it had in it. So I got in there, and they ran the saline solution. They flushed it out of my body, which was great, and I recovered within 8 hours. The next day, the hospital gave me a breakfast: toast, milk, which was pasteurized, so basically it's a glycated protein, which is a high sugar content, piece of fruit, cereal, and like you said, some kind of a biscuit. And I looked at that, and I said, you know what, I'm not touching it, and I didn't. I walked out. I went to a real place and got some, meat and potato and butter and, real meat, real food. So, I mean, that's the genetic of these foods, and that's what it's doing. It's altering our digestive system. It's altering even the way we think because of the level of how it addicts us. And instead of using ATP and glycerin in the body as an energy source, what are we using? Fructose, glucose, and all these other sugars and starches that, again, were not meant for us to consume.
So when people say, well, I can't give up grains, it's all I eat, what do you actually recommend? I mean, you've found some trick that you can...
I said, well, get your box ready, get your 6-foot hole, jump in, and you're done. And then they look at you like, "Why? What are you talking about?" I said, "Well, you keep that up, you're going to be dead before your time." I don't mince words with people. I just don't have the patience anymore. I don't. You know, I tell them straight out, the grains have got to go. I show them the illustrations with the genetically engineered grains that are in the stomach and the digestive system. Majority of the people that come see me already have a respiratory issue going on, a GERD issue going on, intestinal issues going on, IBS, Crohn's, and a whole list of other digestive disorders. Some of them are having, you know, ED issues going on. Some are having respiratory issues, heart issues. So when I talk to them about getting off the grains, the only thing I get sometimes is, "Well, what are we going to eat?" That's what I get, right?
Well, exactly.
So I tell them, you know, God put on this planet a lot of things to eat. Grain is not the only thing. So I tell them you can eat meat, you can eat fish, you can eat chicken, you can eat eggs, you can eat lamb, goose, duck, you can eat cottage cheese, you know, ricotta cheese, kefir, yogurt. You can have seeds if your digestive system isn't compromised. You can have almost any fruit on there except for 6 of them, because I tell them to stay away from 6 specific fruits. You can have any vegetable you like. You know, you can have any fat you like other than vegetable oil, soybean oil, cottonseed oil, and soy. So anything soy-based.
So what are the 6 fruits? I'm very interested in that.
Bananas, grapes, raisins, watermelons, and dates, and there was another one. But because of the high glycemic level of these fruits, and because of the corruption in the intestinal tract, these things will react and further proliferate any kind of overgrowth you've got going on. And I mean, a cup of bananas is equivalent to a cup of white sugar. Now, the only way you should be eating a banana, if you must eat a banana, is it's got to be black and mushy, because when you ferment the sugar, that's when you're going to get the potassium out of a banana. If you don't do that, all you're getting is a displaced potassium. Yeah, you're getting potassium, but it's not being knocked right out the door, because when you eat high glucose or fructose sugars, all your minerals, magnesium, zinc, chromium, manganese, calcium get thrown all over the place and get discarded. That's why you have to take more chromium or more manganese or more zinc to regulate the insulin in the body.
So let's say somebody's taking a supplement and it's got some zinc in it, and now there's another supplement that's got zinc in it, maybe even another one. How safe is it generally, let's just take zinc as an example, to take more zinc? You know, is there too much of zinc or not?
Well, the maximum dose they tell you is between 100 and 150 milligrams. And again, it would depend on what it's bound with. If it's a zinc citrate or zinc methionine or zinc with sulfur, again, you won't need as much because of the fact that it's already bound with something that's going to actually impact it or drive it in more. Now, again, if it's a zinc chelate, then you have to sit there and think, what protein did they bind it with? Usually when I see products that say it's got a mineral with an aminate or a chelate, I get very suspicious, because right off the bat I'm thinking they bound it with some kind of soy. And then sometimes you look at the bottom of the bottle and it says there will be a soy listing in there. So you know that they bound the protein, the soy-based protein, with these minerals, which means it's going to extract it right out of your body. You're not even going to use it. It's just going to pull it right through. So again, between 100 and 150 milligrams, women do not need as much. And again, it all depends how it's mixed to what your usually in a multiple supplement, most of the time it's only about 10 milligram strength, which again really amounts to nothing. So if you had 10 milligram, 10 milligram, and 10 milligram, you know, if you didn't exceed the 150, you should be fine.
Right, brilliant. Let me bring you back right to the beginning about the gallbladder and the liver. People who believe they've got gallstones, what should they do?
Citric acid.
Just
citric acid will break it right up.
Right.
Simplest little thing going, okay? When we do the olive oil and the lemon, basically what are we doing? We're combining a lubricant with citric acid and ascorbic acid. Very little ascorbic acid in any citrus. The best you're going to get out of any citrus is about 50 milligrams. So you're looking for citric acid. Why? Because citric acid dissolves what? Calcium.
Exactly. So drinking a nice vinegar drink would probably do the same thing?
Yes and no, because see, vinegar actually can increase the uptake of calcium. The most absorbable calcium you can make and buy and eat and consume is an eggshell with vinegar, because it's called calcium acetate. That is the most absorbable calcium you could use. So in this situation, I don't know if I would use vinegar, as opposed to citric acid. Now, once everything clears out, then if you're going to use it, I'd probably tell you use it every other day. Don't use it every day because, again, it does absorb, and you will feel pains in the joints, literally. I don't think you need, in my humble opinion, based on my research, you don't need that much calcium anyway. Okay, you can't absorb it that well unless it's already bound with an acid or some kind of protein that's going to allow it to be utilized in the colon. Yogurt will give you more than enough calcium, so will kefir, and so will a lot of the cheeses, because, again, these are ferments that are going to allow you to absorb the mineral more efficiently, and they're also bound with a not only a bacteria, but with a protein, a good protein. So when we're talking kidney stones, I don't know if I would use vinegar, not at that point. I may use, again, a citric acid, even maybe an ascorbic acid to help dissolve and break it down. Usually people who have these things that we've helped here, the citric acid seems to do the trick in a very quick period of time. Usually within a week, they see a lot of relief. Then I tell them, again, don't eat the grains, don't eat this, don't eat that, so that they, and they drink more tea, more fluids, more distilled water, again, to help flush this out.
How much citric acid should they be taking and how much water?
Probably about a quarter teaspoon, several times, 5-6 times a day. I have found, in my experience, that 5 is the magic number. If you're going to give anybody anything to fix, heal, or recover, notice I'm saying heal, fix, and recover, 5 a day is the magic number. If you're giving somebody 3 a day, I find they just maintain. They don't really get on top. So once you give them that 5 or 6, man, all of a sudden you start seeing some you'll start getting letters. Hey, this is working. Oh, yeah, I'm feeling great. My energy's up. Oh, I can digest again. I don't have that pain in my kidney. You'll get that. You will. I mean, I get it all the time. You go on my YouTube sometimes and read some of the comments. Some of these people really amaze me, some of the combinations they put together. But, yeah, 5 a day seems to do the trick. Again, avoid the grains and the soy, any sugar, high fructose corn syrup. Stay away from that. Neotame, stay away from that. Splenda, stay away from that crap. That sucralose, it's all garbage. Causes a lot of kidney issues as well. Again, you do have normal natural sugars like unpasteurized honey and maple syrup. I don't see why people are not eating these things. They got loaded with antioxidants. They're loaded with trace elements. They're loaded with all kinds of protective properties, and you can absorb this stuff. If you don't want to even use that, use glycerol or glycerin. That is the sugar that your body is supposed to be using in the first place, not glucose and fructose, not the high volume you were using. And again, what does glycerol do when you combine it with phosphorus and glycine? Converts to ATP. That's what we want.
And let's be clear about the liver. So let's say one wants to clean the liver. Can you just give exact, precise instructions to what somebody should do?
The only thing I would give them the same formulation: 1 teaspoon of ascorbic acid with 1 teaspoon of STS or sodium thiosulfate and 3 ounces of distilled water or reverse osmosis water or some kind of clean, purified water. Do that every night for 4 weeks. And if you want to increase the regeneration process of the liver, then you would take rosemary, sage, dandelion, and milk thistle teas, which can help in the recovery and regeneration of, let's say you have damaged the liver as a result of alcohol or some other foods that you've eaten in the past that have had genetically engineered material that attack the liver. Then again, this is some of the things that can help regenerate. Even artichoke will do this as well. It will help regrow and renew a liver.
Artichoke root or the fruit?
The fruit. Yeah. I think pretty well anything that has to do with it. It's a specific component in it that will do it, and I think it's along the whole plant anyway, so I don't think you're going to go wrong no matter which way you go. There are, you can use even things like goji berry, which is also very high in SOD production, which can, protect the liver. Vitamin C, which is in the SCS, which will help produce interferon in the liver. So, I think that in itself and keeping it simple in regard to what you're eating and what you're avoiding will make a big difference in regard to renewing the liver completely. So, let's say you're also dealing with a fatty liver. Okay, you got fatty NAFLD, non-alcohol fatty liver disease. Well, you might want to use more B5. You might want to use more sunflower lecithin or egg yolk lecithin. You might want to use more biosalts. Taurine is a biggie for this. Taurine can help really make a difference in the liver because of the way it helps produce biosalts, and then taking straight biosalts. So, I mean, you have, depending on the issue going on and what you're looking at, that's, I guess, how you should best approach this in whatever method you're going to use. To clean it out, again, SCS and vitamin C. To regenerate it and rebuild it, again, the specific herbs. And again, if you've got, again, a fatty liver, that's an issue going on, then we need, again, to put stuff in the body. It's going to break this down, L-carnitine, B5, lipase, sunflower egg yolk lecithin, biosalts, taurine. These all work on that condition, can help alleviate and remove this stuff. And again, you must avoid the grains. There is no ifs, ands, or buts.
And many people ask me about liver spots on their hands, for example. Can you explain briefly why people get liver spots and what to do? Or is the answer what you've just given?
Part of it. These are not liver spots either. They could be what they call glycation of cells. Your protein and your sugar are actually binding in the skin, and as a result, it forms this browning effect. That's what glycation is a combination of sugar and, again, protein that are cohesing and creating cellular damage. Now, you can clear that up as well by using something as simple as an aspirin solution with a lemon juice to break that down. You can start using B1 MSM, which are both anti-glycating nutrients. That when you combine, the MSM actually augments the B1 by a factor of 13. Again, this can help reverse some of the damage that's going on. I'm sure you have people that are dealing with fibromyalgia and restless leg and a whole host of other damaging issues in the body along those lines. So again, what are you going to give them? You have to give them an enzyme to help break down the debris and material. I usually give serrapeptase, even trypsin will work. And then I combine MSM with B1. And usually, not always, but usually between 10 and 12 days, they call you back and say, hey, I'm actually getting my strength back. I'm actually feeling less pain. I'm actually seeing some results here. And again, what does it boil down to? Your diet. Do not eat grains. Do not eat soy. And canola oil should be, if you got any kind of restless leg or any kind of fibromyalgia issues, canola or any kind of cellular decay going on in the body, canola oil should be avoided like the plague, because it destroys the myelin sheath and destroys you on a cellular level. Don't ever eat it.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Lastly, because we're now running out of time, unfortunately, I'd like you just to tell us what you would recommend for thyroid issues. Iodine clearly is a huge and obvious one.
Yeah, definitely. 4 things that we give people here are iodine, selenium, selenium citrate, tyrosine, and vitamin D. These are the crucial elements there. And again, it's all going to boil down to leaving goitrogenic foods alone. If you're eating broccoli, cauliflower, kale, soy, peas, anything that's going to attack radishes, anything that's going to attack the thyroid, at this stage of the game, leave it alone. That's my favorite 3 letters these days, LIA. Leave it alone. Because if you're already compromised, no matter how good these foods may appear to be, they're going to further exacerbate the condition. And the other thing you must avoid, again, is canola, because one of the things that canola oil does is it scars the thyroid and it scars the heart. Okay, this is an omega-3 oil that they're having everybody cook with.
Now, I think we're. Would I be right in saying canola, which we don't sort of normally get so much in England? Would that be rapeseed oil?
Yeah, same thing.
So here it's just labelled straight rapeseed oil. And people think they're doing themselves a favour by buying a material that no insect or animal would even consider is food.
You know what rapeseed is good for?
Oiling machines.
That's it. There you go.
Yeah, I love this thing that if you get a room full of starving rats and you throw those oils in, or even a bunch of margarine, the rats just carry on being hungry, and they'd rip food to shreds, but they just ignore margarine because they realise it's not food.
Yeah, well, they're smarter than most people.
Oh, clearly. It seems that way. But anyway, at least the people watching this programme are fabulously smart and getting smarter by episode.
Well, that's good. And that, you know what? That's awesome. It really is. And I've seen the same thing with our YouTubers that are watching us there. The radio. I think people are. I had a letter from Bulgaria actually yesterday or the day before, and there's actually people forming a network there now where they're doing stuff like what you're promoting and what I'm promoting, and it's good to see that more and more people are forming good networks, trying to discover the truth about what makes people healthy, and and I attribute that to people like yourself, myself, and others who are actually trying to make a difference in explaining and expressing what needs to be done and revealing the truth in whatever form or fashion that they can do it in whatever guidelines they have to get people to at least start thinking. But that's really important. You got to use that gray matter. People are not doing that anymore. So yeah, I think it's a good thing.
And I love what you're doing because you're showing people, how to make it yourself at home for next to nothing and make the most powerful, most brilliant things in the world. For those of you who possibly haven't seen Tony before, you have to go onto YouTube, onto Tony Pantalleresco's YouTube site. There must be, a couple of hundred videos plus, I imagine. But they're all brilliant, and I'm constantly inspired to make things that I otherwise wouldn't even have dreamt of. I've got things fermenting that some of them taste absolutely vile, but are hugely good for you, and some of them taste absolutely gorgeous. More of the gorgeous tasting ones, please, if that's all right. But your work's brilliant.
That's my strongest criticism. Is can you not make anything that tastes good? I said, well, sometimes this is the only way, and you got to bite the bullet because you're so used to. Because then what happens? See, we get so used to this sugar, tolerance is so high that when we eat something that we're supposed to eat, it tastes like crap to us because we're sugar coated. But once that sugar starts to go down, well, then we really start to taste. Say, this isn't so bad. This is actually tasting pretty good because we made the changes that we needed to make on that sugar overload. I made a comment in one of the shows that I laid off of eating pork. I don't eat pork products. But I used to when I was younger. I used to eat bacon. And then for 1 year, I didn't eat bacon. Then I went back to eating bacon after a year, and I spat it out. It was the first time after so many years that I actually got to taste the crap in the bacon. Now, I didn't know it was there before because I had been acclimated to this taste or this flavor or whatever, and I thought this is normal. But the moment I got off of this stuff, and then I went back and tried it. I said, holy jumper, what the heck is this? This isn't food. And again, when you look at the chemical composition of some of these products that you're eating today, it's like, really? This is in my food? Why is that there? So, the best solution really to ensure that you're going to get the best bang for your buck for food, grow it yourself. Grow it yourself, or find people that are having an aquaponic system, hydroponic system, or a system where it's not being exposed to chemtrails or exposed to genetics, okay? Because under the Codex guidelines, they're irradiating all your food that's being made in the mainstream. So, but they do allow for that you can go, because they don't think people are going to get enough food by getting it themselves. I often encourage that if neighborhoods would get together and plant heirloom seeds or open-end seeds and started growing these things in neighborhoods, okay, you're going to send a strong, strong signal to the grocery chain saying, we're not going to eat your crap anymore, and I'm tired of being poisoned, and I'm tired of being sick. So that would be an option.
If we all planted one fruit or nut tree every week, we'd have forests again quite quickly.
Yeah, you know what? I got 5 avocado trees growing. I got 3 avocado indoors. I figured a way to manipulate that so it'll grow indoors. I found a trick is in the soil. Anyway, yeah, you're right. Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. I even tell people, whatever seeds you're eating today, plant them. Yeah. Apple seeds, orange seeds, pineapple, whatever you've got, plant them, replant them, get them going again, because if the way things are going with all this genetic crap, we're not going to have a safe food supply in a short period of time. I don't know about you, but I do not want to eat aluminum-laced plants. I do not want to eat nano silver particled sprayed plants. I do not want to eat something that's been genetically altered or genetically modified in the ground. Okay, I don't want to eat the bad bacteria that's in the ground as a result of genetic manipulation. I want to eat the things that I'm supposed to eat. It's going to give me my mineral, my enzyme content, my antioxidant content, my protein, whatever carb and whatever fat I'm going to get. I want to get that again from a real natural source, not having to rely on a vitamin company or companies now, which may or may not have quality nutrients again in the food in the vitamin industry section. Because again, start looking at your vitamins, read them. You might find polymers in there. You might find aluminum in there. You might find other metal products in there. You might find plastic. You never know what you're going to find anymore. You have to really read.
Have you tried taking cereal, breakfast cereal, scrunching it up, mixing it up with water, putting it in a plastic bag, getting a really powerful magnet, shaking it around and getting the iron out of it? When they fortify cereals with iron, they're actually putting iron filings in it, and you can get them out with a magnet. It's deeply shocking.
Somebody sent me this, and I'll tell you what shocked me more. That we're looking at the metal in the cereal, right? But we're not looking at the cereal itself being genetically altered. The reason why they're putting these nutrients or these iron filings or whatever the hell they're putting in there,
it's to stop children dying, isn't it?
Well, I mean, think about this. If they've got to put that in there, it's because the grain itself has been so genetically stripped down through either genetics or irradiation that they are, again, based on the label, because you say, oh, it's iron fortified, ooh, and you're going to eat this crap thinking you've got iron fortification, but you're still eating a GMO product. And this is the big crunch of it all. Even in the health food industry, when you go into some of these health food stores and they say they got a sugar-free product. Yay. Okay. But then they add grape juice and apple juice. These are still a fructose. And again, the grain, quote unquote, might be organic. But again, those organics are being exposed to genetics. They're all mixed together in the same. And then if not, they're also irradiating those so-called organics. Okay, that's under the Dakota's Elementary's guideline. So you're not getting anything in these grains anyway other than dead material that now gets into your colon, that causes a disruption in the bacterial culture in your colon, creating a negative bacteria, which now does not allow you to absorb your B vitamins at all, or other minerals that you need to ferment in the colon in order to absorb. So that's an interesting element that you're presenting there, which again shouldn't be in the food either. And this is absolute absurdity there. But take that to the next level. Genetics, and then we're adding industrial metal in these genetics. Interesting.
Who would have thought it? One other thing that just did occur to me. One other important thing for ATP clearly is the idea of B vitamins and supercharging them by putting them in yogurt or putting them in something so you can ferment them, and really, because it seems to me that there is an epidemic of B12 deficiency around. So many people with low energy just from the lack of B vitamins.
Okay, like I said, B3, B2, B3, B5 are the key ones for ATP. Now, for the liver support, liver energy is your B12 and folic acid, which again, as I said, you're eating a genetically engineered cereal that goes down into colon, which disrupts the colon's healthy bacteria because it's dead and inert and irradiated anyway. And again, we've added an iron content to it. I still can't get over that. But anyway, so again, what are we doing? We are creating a negative bacteria in the colon. So now you go get a B12 supplement and you decide to swallow it down thinking, I'm getting my B12 or I'm getting my folic acid, okay? And what's happening is it cannot convert it because you don't have that bacteria in there to convert it anymore because you've taken it out the door with this genetically engineered soy or this wheat or barley or oat or whatever the hell they're putting in there. And then you can't figure out why you have a B12 deficiency. Then when you take the yogurt, crush your B12, and you put it in there and your folic acid and you let it sit overnight, you start all of a sudden after maybe a couple of days to a week, hey, I feel my Wheaties again without having eaten Wheaties. I've got it, I'm getting it back. And that's this key to any B vitamin any mineral you're using. You know, this is why I tell people you put it in a yogurt with fat. Don't put any crap in it. Fat-free, sugar-free. Leave it alone. If it's got any kind of splenda, sucrose, leave it alone. Just get plain fat. You want to put fruit in it? Hey, put your own blueberries in there. You know, clean them up with peroxide or TSP or whatever. Put them in there. You know, blend them up. Then add your B12. Add your folic acid. You know, if you want to add a whole B complex, put it in there. Grind it up and mix it up really good. Let it sit overnight. Let the magic of fermentation start to take over. You know, you'd be surprised how a lot of the health issues will start to disappear once the colon gets back to the bacteria it once had.
Brilliant. So to finish off, Tony's website is augmentinforce50.web. Is it?
Augmentinforce.50webs.com.
Augmentinforce.50webs.com.
Yeah, it's actually a UK site. Anyway, feel free to go there, download anything you want, and I encourage everybody to download everything. We've got a script of the show because we do a radio show as well every Saturday night between 8 and 10. It's an online show as well. It's got a chat. We've got health questions. You can come in, but there's scripts there. Feel free to go get them, download them. There's recipes galore. You know, and then you'll get insightful information on what's going on so you can better prepare yourself and defend yourself against the onslaught of the regulations that are coming in for our health. I mean, you guys in Europe, the European Food and Safety, I feel sorry for you because you've got the FDA over there now. That's what that is. You know, and that's and then you got Codex Alimentarius, which again I don't envy either. These institutions really have to be put out to pasture or something because they're not doing any of us any good. None of us.
Well, luckily the people are waking up to the fact they don't want it, don't need it, and shouldn't have it. You know, it's got to be a grassroots thing where people just say no and refuse it. And the manufacturers of the supplements need to get their act together and make quality items. You know, the reason I started a supplement company was frustration because I couldn't get good stuff around. So as a shameless advert for my products, ancientpurity.com, we have lots of good stuff.
Yeah, okay, and you know what? That is needed big time. Because if people are going to buy products and they're going to spend big dollars, because you're over there, it costs more than what it cost me here to buy stuff, because again, the cost of living and everything else. But I mean, if you're going to get something, I would rather pay for a clean product that's pure, that's going to actually work, than pay for this junk.
Exactly.
You know,
I think 98% of the stuff that's on sale out there purporting to be healthy is crap. And
you're very conservative about
well, you want to give them the benefit.
99.9, but anyway, I could be wrong.
Yeah. So,
but I mean, there are still some good products. That's true.
Yeah.
But I mean, you really have to read what you're buying. Okay, you really have to look at what's going on. Don't get caught up in some snake oil pitch about this product is better than that product. Look at the ingredients. Look at really what's in those products. You know, if someone says it's 99.9% here and this one's saying 99.9% there, and they're the exact same thing, there's really not going to be no difference except what you're going to pay for them. So again, and if you can get an MSDS on some of this stuff, that would even be better.
But the problem is that people, even if they really think they know what they're doing, it's really hard. I mean, you know, how do you tell the difference between real vitamin E and synthetic vitamin E? You've got to be super knowledgeable because on the label it says D-alpha tocopherol, and the synthetic stuff, the only difference isn't the letter L, isn't it? They put DL-alpha tocopherol, and I mean, unless you're obsessive about it, you can't tell. So the only way is to go to a good supplier that you can trust to buy the stuff in the first place.
I think programs like yours and mine will educate people to be able to interpret what they're reading. Okay, I really do believe that that's key, and it's going to be key, and that's what's going to force this industry to either smarten up or people are just going to quit buying these supplements and make their own anyway.
Yeah.
Now, the other thing, too, is you have to understand that see, in the United States and Canada's a little bit more tighter in the regulations than the United States. Okay, so what's going to happen in the United States, it's already started to happen actually, is they're not going to take their vitamins away per se, but what they're going to do is they're going to compromise their vitamins. They're going to put a lot of crap in fillers or reduce the load way down to a Codex guideline.
Yeah,
which
a
means that-
hundredth of what would be
yeah,
sensible.
exactly. Or a 10, not even a thousandth. I mean, depending on what it is. You can see CQ10 will be compromised. I mean, I've already seen that. They sold us ubiquinol, and then they added it to canola oil. I'm thinking, really? You go through all that trouble to refine CQ10, and then you're going to mix it with a poisonous oil? I mean, who are we kidding here? But again, like you said, people don't know what to look for. But again, this is going to be a thing that a lot of us who are out there already doing what we're doing is showing people, right? And then you get the hard you call them hard cases that don't want to change. Okay, fine, you eat what you want. You know, what can I tell you? If you get sick, then it's on you. I mean, I tried to show you. If you don't want to listen, hey, that's fine. And that's my attitude. You know, I'm like that Matrix theme. You know, take the blue pill, and away you go to the truth. You take the red pill. I don't care what you believe after that. You can go back to sleep. La la la. I really don't care. I've done my thing best as I could. If I couldn't get it over to you, maybe a guy like you can do what I couldn't do, and I have no problem with that either. You know, and I think that's going to be a cooperative along these lines eventually, where people are going to really show each other. Well, yeah, this guy's saying this guy's saying this. Hey, they're all saying the same thing. Maybe I should pay attention to this. You know, and I think that's where it's going to come.
Yeah. Well, you know, the ultimate aim is to make ourselves out of a job because everybody's well.
Hey, you know what? There'll be something else to do.
There will be.
I can go back to growing the garden again like I want to.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much, Tony. Make sure you find some time, a little bit of time each day in the garden.
I'm going to do my best.
Good. And thank you all very much for watching. And we'll look forward to seeing you in the next episode. Thank you. Wouldn't it be wonderful if we could look into somebody's face and really know who they are at a deep level? Perhaps we might be able to instantly see their gifts, their talents. Perhaps we could see whether they'd make an ideal business partner, whether they'd make an ideal relationship partner. Now, what if I told you there is a method which is 90% accurate to measure, to evaluate the pattern recognition, the face recognition possibilities. You can learn in a very short time how to read somebody's face, and this could make a massive difference in your life in so many areas. Later in the program, we'll be welcoming back Tony Pantalleresco for the second time. He's going to inform us on a lot of very key things. I'm hoping to ask him particularly on what is the best method to flush out, clean, rejuvenate one's liver and gallbladder, and also the best remedy for the thyroid. But for now, I'd like to welcome Naomi Tickle, who is the author of this book, What Makes People Tick and Why, and puts on courses worldwide to teach face pattern recognition. So welcome, Naomi.
Well, thank you very much, Clive. It's great to be here.
Well, thank you so much. And I'm hoping in the course of this evening that you can run through some of the easier and more obvious facial recognition patterns that we can all use and perhaps start using right away. Tell us a little bit about the system and how incredibly scientifically reliable it turns out to be.
Well, this was actually started by a judge in Los Angeles back in the 1930s. And whilst he was in court, he was intrigued by the whole relationship between facial structure and personality, and would constantly see these patterns whilst in court, to the point where he decided to drop his work and then researched it together with a team of men and came up with the system we use today. And they did the initial research on just over 10,000 people. And this applies across all cultures. So no matter where we are in the world, if you see somebody with a certain shape, an eye, a forehead, width of face, character casting, but even then, there's still some errors that are made.
Yes. And I was interested to hear you say how much more accurate it is than intuition. I'd love to think that our intuition was more accurate, but perhaps the intuition can be trained once you... I imagine the intuition perhaps trains the subconscious, so without even looking, you begin to get a sense of who's who, or do you still find that the science, you have to do the science, or is your intuition improving as a result?
I don't think it's intuition. I think it's pattern recognition. We meet thousands of people over our time. And I think our brain sees the patterns there. You know, sometimes we meet people and say, oh, I think you'd be good at this. Don't know why, but I've got a feeling. I've got intuition. This is what you'd be good at. Or something seems familiar about that face. What is it? And I think the brain is connecting the patterns that we see. In fact, you know, when you see a room full of people in the same activity, for example, tennis. A lot of your tennis players, your professional tennis players, will have close-set eyes, focused on the ball. And people who play golf as well, typically close-set eyes. Or if you take another sport like volleyball or gymnastics, a lot of them, the women have close-set eyes, focused on the ball. Whereas the wider-set-eyed person is much more the bigger picture. Or if you went into a room of accountants, you'd find a lot of people with closer eyes. Or when I gave a lecture to a workshop at the orthodontist conference, I had 200 beady eyes looking at me, which says, oh, they're in the right profession, good with detail. And so we see those patterns after a while. So I think what we believe is intuition. I see it as pattern recognition. And I like the science of this because it doesn't matter where you are. You know, if you see somebody who has, say, as we were talking about, the close-set eyes, we actually measure it. We measure the width of the eye itself, and then we measure the space between the eyes. And we look to see, is the eye larger than the space between, and therefore they are less tolerant people, and they're very good with detail. They get sometimes worried. They worry about things till it's bigger than life sometimes. Whereas the wide-set-eyed people are much more laid back. Oh, it's going to be fine. What are we worrying about? Just relax. Get over it. And they're the multitaskers. Oh, I can do this and this and this. And they get a bit scattered sometimes. Whereas the closer-eyed person, very good with details, as I mentioned, but sometimes when things aren't working or someone's said something to hurt their feelings, they can worry about situations till it's bigger than life itself. Remember a woman who sent me a photograph from England, and she hadn't driven her car in a long time. She was so fearful of driving. And her eyes couldn't have been closer. And so I did her profile, and I explained to her that everybody with this trait experiences that level of anxiety. So I did. I told her what I did and explained it. And she said, oh, well, I write for the newspaper. So, there was what the child had inherited from the parents. Now, when the face is very asymmetrical, that will indicate that the parents of that child were very different from each other. And so when there's a lot of differences, say about 15 or more differences from left to right side of the face, this will indicate people who have mood swings. And they're often called bipolar or ADD or something like that. But it's the push and pull of the traits. And when I explain to people what's going on, they say, oh, I feel so normal. Now I understand myself. And I remember I was in the parking garage and I saw this young man and I thought he was helping people out with their tickets. And I thought, the talent in his face, I had to reach out to him. And so I said to him, are you going to college? And no, he said. I said, what are your plans? He said, well, I'm a high school dropout. Who's going to want me? So I shared with him what I do. And I said to him, you might want to get into film editing. And with that, he reached out, about 17, 18 years of age. He reached out, catches hold of my hands and says, you have just turned my life around. He said, that has been an area I've been interested in, but I didn't think I was good enough. So it gives you such an immediate insight to people and who they are. So instead of us reacting the way people are, we come from understanding. And then after I did my initial studies, I studied this in the early 1990s, and then I took a couple of years out and researched this just to test it out and get the feedback from the clients I met with. And I went to several of the expos in England as well as in the United States, working with people. And I started to see the patterns and the confirmation that, yes, this does work. And it's, as I say, it's helping people all over the world. People who are lost in a career and say, what should I be doing next? Or couples who are struggling to find a partner, or the struggles within the relationship. Businesses who are looking to create a better team or to work together more effectively. It's just helping so many people, and it's making a difference.
And on a sort of a less important note, but one that struck me, was that I heard you speaking about the idea that casting directors should know this, because it completely explained to me, well, that's why so many people look completely out of character, because they are. And if only they knew what you can teach them, films would be so much better.
Oh, absolutely. The part comes alive. I remember watching somebody play, I think it was Richard Nixon or somebody. It just didn't work. It just simply didn't work. And other times I see people miscasted. I think they do a pretty good job in England, I have to say. We're still very much a follower of the English films. We enjoy them, and I think do a much better. The eyelids, it's going to mean exactly the same. So after their research, they then were invited by the Freshman Air Force to see if by using this system, they could determine who would stay the course. And they actually got 97% accuracy. And they even indicated the type of aircraft they would fly. Now, this was about a couple of years ago. This was validated by a man I happened to meet, and he was unaware I knew of this story. And he shared with me that his father had been a part of that study. And then they've done studies in San Quentin prison, not for crime, because there's no trait that indicates crime. They just started to see how this would help the prison guards and the warden work with the inmates. And the feedback from the psychologist and the warden, they said what was uncovered within a period of about a couple of hours, is it would have taken months, years, maybe never to have found out. In that, their personality traits and their strengths and challenges. So a lot of these traits can be seen at the time of birth, such as writing, detailed, precision, music, historian, the designer, someone who's good at organizing, someone who's more analytical or wants the bottom line. And then by the time the child has passed puberty, all these traits are fully formed. So I think of the face as like the GPS of our inner blueprint. It's a reference point. It's a map that it gives us a starting point as to where we can take our journey in our life. What are our innate strengths and challenges? And I have to say, Clive, that when I first came across this, so I'm originally from the south of England, I thought, oh, this sounds so Californian. Now, I'm not going to fall for this one. It sounded like one of these touchy-feely things to do. But I went down and had an assessment. And for the first time, I felt validated. So it's all based on the structure of the face. Nothing to do with expression or dimples or freckles or whatever it might be. It's all to do with the structure of the face. And when I had my chart done, I thought, there must be a lot of students out there who leave school haven't got a clue what to do. They've got degree in hand, and they're still lost. And I remember going through that same experience, and it took me many years later to come across this. And yet, as a child, I'd always been intrigued by this whole concept, and would share with my parents, well, why are they different from here? And, oh, it's because of this and this. And they would say to me, don't be silly, don't stare at people. So, but I was intrigued, so it was not surprising that many years later, here it was again, coming into my life, and it's been an amazing journey.
Well, that's fantastic. I mean, so if I get this right, so that when the baby's born, they're going to say, well, good news, it's a girl and it's a musician.
That's right. Or I saw this little baby, it was about 5 months old, and I noticed they had these little lines that are etched in just here. They're not age lines, you see them at day of birth, and it's to do with writing. And I thought I have to share with her mother that her daughter would be a writer later on. And so I suggested to her that she might want to, next time she's going to drive the car, find a book on tape and then play it in the car as she drives. Her first trip, she drove from London to Wales and has not stopped driving. So I went to the Y. I explained to her about the trait and told her, it's made a suggestion as to what she could do. And it works. It's the same. So I was on the TV program in England, and this woman had sleep anxiety. And there were several of us on the show talking about that, and I'm giving her some suggestions what to do. And afterwards, we stepped outside, and I talked with her and did a little bit of coaching. And she just flung her arms around me and said, oh, you've made a difference. She said, this has really helped me to understand why I do this. As simple as that. So all it takes is a glance at the face, and you pretty much know about people.
Well, it's so important because I see so many people who are lost in life. They've got no clue what they want to do. And I see everybody has got a great gift, one way or another. I think everybody's here for a reason to do something interesting and good. Let's say you were to teach this at schools. At what age are children really receptive to it? I imagine from quite young.
Oh, yes. I mean, the younger, actually, the more receptive they are. I remember this, actually, it was a story that I was in England, and this lady brought me, or this mother brought me her 9-year-old daughter, who is blind. And she was going to a special school, I believe in Wales, driving from London to Wales a couple of times a week, because the school authorities didn't think she was too bright and that she had some learning disabilities. And anyway, her mother brought her in to see me whilst I was in London, and I did her assessment. And it was a very moving experience. And she actually even went up, this little girl went up and turned on my computer. Now, she's blind. And I was blown away by that. And her mother said to me, you were surprised? She said, I was really surprised. Anyway, what came up for her was electrical engineering. And I thought, oh, this is strange. And this is not something I would suggest. So I shared this with her mother. And she said, oh, I'm not at all surprised. She said, when the man came to fix the washing machine, she goes up to him and said, it's missing on the first cycle. Will you show me how to fix it?
Oh, fantastic. And
her mother took her out of the mainstream school, because I said to her mother, she is very bright, your daughter. She took her out of the mainstream school. She went back into the regular school and just soared. She said the level of confidence changed her daughter completely. And it was a very moving experience because she came up and snuggled next to me. And I felt there was some connection there. She was really sensing it. Here's somebody who doesn't know her, was validating who she was. And that's simply all I do.
And are there any schools who are giving career guidance as a normal standard thing to all their students using your methods?
No, they are very reluctant to accept this